welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we are going to be doing this makeup look right here. This is just a video for people who want to get into makeup or are already in makeup but don't really know how to do their makeup, don't know how to do certain steps of their makeup, and hopefully this video will help you. I go in depth about different types of products you could use. I go in depth about the different techniques you could use. I just know that this type of video would have been really helpful for when I was getting into makeup and for when I was learning different techniques that, you know, I saw all the big YouTubers use and saw like all the TikTokers use. I know there's a lot of beginners makeup tutorials that have been around for years, but this is kind of like an updated one. I haven't really seemed to find a new video that has kind of like the newer techniques or the newer products that people use nowadays. All the videos that I've kind of seen before are kind of like the older videos that people used to film back in like 2015, 2016. So maybe this might help you a little bit. But yeah, I really hope you enjoy this video and let's get started. Today's focus is mainly going to be on our base and mainly going to be about the skin. I'm also not going to be doing a eye look today either, just because if you're looking for simple makeup and you're a beginner, I don't think eyeshadow is where you're going to be focusing on. So we're just going to go straight into our base. So I just want to say, before you even go in with makeup, make sure you've washed your skin and make sure you've also moisturized. Make sure you are using a moisturizer that is tailored to your skin type. There's basically four skin types. So you have dry skin, you have oily skin, you have combination skin, which combination means a mix of dry and oily, and then you also just have like normal skin. I personally have dry skin, so if you are someone who has more oily skin, this video isn't going to be 100% tailored to you, but you can pick up tips and tricks from me because I do have a lot of products that will work for both dry and oily skin. Just make sure you're using a moisturizer that suits you. Because I have dry skin, today I've used the Weleda Skin Food. As you can see, it's just left a really soft glow on my face. But now I'm going to go in with kind of like a moisturizing primer, and I actually have two for you, and one is a dupe of the other. So the one that I usually go in with is the Bobbi Brown Face Base. Now this is a really hydrating base, however I do know it is quite expensive, so I decided to pick up the Primark pennies, whichever you want to call it, PS Prep and Perfect Vitamin Enriched Moisturizing Primer. This is a dupe for the Bobbi Brown Face Base. I do love the Bobbi Brown Face Base. I've always loved it. I think it is definitely one of my top, it's probably my top moisturizing primer. You can use it as a moisturizer and then you can also use it as a primer. However, for me, I feel like it doesn't do any benefits of a primer. Like, a primer is meant to make your makeup last. I don't necessarily think that these make your makeup last. I just think they make your makeup go on a lot better and just add a bit more extra moisture into your skin. Okay, so now that that is all rubbed in, I'm going to talk a little bit about primer now. So primer is kind of one of those things that people either love it or they hate it. They either think it works or they think it doesn't. The only thing that I'm kind of looking for in a primer is that it's moisturizing for me because I have dry skin, and also that it is tacky, so it kind of makes your foundation stick to it. And the one I recommend, and I've heard everyone loves it, whether you're dry skin, oily skin, combination, normal, is the Milk Hydro Grip Primer. Now I've had this since 2019 and I have loved it ever since. As you can see, I'm pretty much nearly out. The only little bit is like in the cap, but I don't tend to go for it all that often just because there's not a lot of times that I need my makeup to last unless I'm in work or going on a night out. At the moment I'm not in work and I'm not going on a night out, so I'm gonna skip this for today. But there's loads of different primers that you can try. There's more hydrating, more like oil combating ones. I know the Laura Mercier blurring primer one is meant to be really good. Any of the Laura Mercier ones are meant to be amazing, but this one is my favorite. But for today we're gonna skip straight into kind of like another base product. As we all know, the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter went viral. Everyone raved on about it. It's amazing for underneath your makeup, or if you want it as a base and then just concealer, it's great as a lightweight natural coverage product. However, I've picked up the Primark dupe because, again, it is very expensive, and as a beginner you probably aren't going to be wanting to spending loads on makeup, and I just think if you are able to get your hands on something a little bit cheaper that is similar to the more expensive product, then you might as well. So this is the PS Flawless Glow Radiant Glow Primer Foundation Hybrid, and I've got mine in the shade Buttermilk just because I am pale at the moment. Just to talk about undertones before we get into like actual like makeup. So there's three different undertones. There's the pink undertone, there's the yellow undertone, olive undertone, and then more like a neutral. When I'm tanned, I prefer more of a neutral tone, whereas when I'm pale, very obviously I am more of a pink to neutral tone. So all of the products that I use when I am pale, I will go for a pink neutral undertone. It just works better for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put this all over my face, and the reason I'm going to put this all over my face is because like I said, have dry skin, so I like my whole face to look a little bit glowy. You can either go between a brush or a sponge. Personally, I prefer a brush for this type of product just because it makes sure the product stays on your face, because it is already so lightweight and it's not a foundation. I prefer a brush to put it on rather than a beauty blender, because a beauty blender is just going to soak it up. So I'm actually just going to use a kabuki brush. Now this type of brush is just going to shear it out a little bit. Now this one has a little bit more coverage than the Charlotte Tilbury one. The Charlotte Tilbury one is more of literally like just a glow from within underneath your foundation, whereas this one actually has a bit of coverage. As you can see, it's kind of blurred my skin a little bit. Now it's not going to cover spots or anything like that. Okay, so for foundation, there are different formulations of foundation that you can use. You have your typical standard liquid foundation. You also can get a stick foundation like this hourglass one. If you're new to my channel, my favorite one is always the NARS Natural Radiant Longwear foundation. Just for my skin type, I just find it is a lot nicer on my skin in terms of like it's not drying, it keeps its coverage but still being hydrated. One that I love in summer is the NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. This one is very lightweight, but it keeps the coverage, so I love it during summer. Then we also have the Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin Foundation. If you prefer a more lightweight natural type of coverage, this foundation is going to be for you. It's just an overall nice foundation for summer. And then you have the Hourglass Stick Foundation. So this one is a little bit more coverage. You can kind of tailor this to the coverage that you want because you control how much is going on your face. Obviously, if you want more, you could just add more stripes. If you want less, just add 1 stripe, 2 stripes, however much. For today, I'm going to be using the NARS Natural Radiant Foundation just because, like I said, it is my favorite. I just love the coverage of this. Personally, for me, I prefer a medium to full coverage, and this is in the shade Mont Blanc for anyone that is wondering. So like I said, you have options for foundation as well as you do for your primers, and you have a brush. I like something that is a bit more fluffy. I really like a brush when I want a little bit more of a fuller coverage, or if I want something a bit more natural, I'll just go in with my sponge. However, today I'm going to go in with my brush. So what I like to do is I like to pump it onto my brush or my finger and spread it across my face, whichever suits. Honestly, it doesn't matter how you get it onto your face. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start patting this onto my skin. And what this is going to do is patting is going to give you the most amount of coverage. As you can see, big difference there. So as you can see, the coverage difference, 10 out of 10. Now what I like to do after I've patted it in with a brush is to go over with a beauty blender, because the beauty blender is no longer going to absorb the foundation. It's going to just take off the excess foundation, and it's also going to blend it even more, so it just looks a bit more seamless. Because sometimes with a brush you can end up with brush strokes all over your face, and that is not what we want. You can put as much or as little foundation on as you like. Personally, I like to do kind of like a pump per area, so a pump on my cheeks and then a pump on my forehead. When it comes to my chin, I like to do like a half a pump, and then my nose I kind of just brush over it, because I have found if anyone finds that their foundation separates on their nose, first of all, you could have oily skin, so maybe look into kind of a mattifying primer or just a longevity primer for your nose. But I've also found that the more product you put on your nose, the more it's going to take away. I do find that making sure that your skin is prepped is definitely what helps the most when it comes to making your makeup last. So like I said, I'm just gonna go in with my beauty blender now. My beauty blender is damp, by the way. I always recommend using a damp beauty blender. It just helps to mesh the products into each other. Because the foundation is a liquid, having a damp blender is going to make sure that it blends properly. So I just go over my whole entire face with this. Okay, now you can either go straight into concealer and then powders, or you can start using cream products. Personally for me, I like to use a cream bronzer, a cream blusher, a concealer, and then also going with a powder bronzer, powder blush. But you can skip straight to concealer if you'd like to, so if you do, skip this part. But I just want to show you cream bronzers if you are wanting to get into cream bronzers, because when I first started wanting to experiment with different cream products, I was terrified because I had no idea what I was doing. So you've kind of got two formulations. Like I said, you have your liquid formulation, which for me is the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Contour Wand in the shade light to medium, or you have more of a stick, which this is the Milk Makeup Matte Bronzer in the shade Baked. One is also a cool tone bronzer. So a cool tone bronzer is going to give you more of a sculpted shape. It does look a bit ashy. If you have more of a yellow tone, I would say steer clear of the kind of cool tone bronzers, just because it can look really muddy, it can look really ashy. So if you are more of a cool toned to neutral tone, go with a cool toned. If you have more of like an olivey yellow base, go with more of like a kind of like creamy, bronzy, browny, caramelly shade. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to use the Charlotte Tilbury one. Primark do dupes of this. I just don't have them. I never pick them up. So what I do is I put dots where I want the contour to be. So for me, it's across my forehead, it's on my cheekbone. So my cheekbone is here. I like my contour to be on my cheekbone, because sometimes I find when you put it under and start blending, it drags it down here, and then you have a lot of mess to clean up. And then I like to put it on my nose, just because I like to add a bit of definition to my nose. You can either go in with a beauty blender to get, you know, kind of more of like a sheer look, or if you want more of a coveraged bronzer look, you can go in a brush. I've actually never used a brush with this product, so why don't we give it a go? I'm just going to use this angle brush. I've never used a brush with the Charlotte Tilbury. I only ever used the beauty blender, so we'll just give it a go. So you want to try and keep the product exactly where it is and never drag, always pat, just because again, when you start dragging, you're dragging it to places you don't want it to be. The reason I'm also doing this before concealer is because if I make any mistakes, like I bring it too far, my concealer is going to brighten my skin anyway, so it'll cover up any mistakes I may have made or where I didn't want the product to go. Makeup is so universal. You may have a certain way of doing things, and that is perfectly fine. You do it the way you want to do it. No one has the right to tell you of what way is correct, but I'm just giving you tips on what might help you if you've never used makeup before, or if you want to get into kind of like different products, like trying cream bronzers. Like I said, the first time I wanted to try cream bronzer, sorry, I'm also going on with my beauty blender just to blend it out a little bit more. So yeah, when I first started trying makeup products and cream products, I really wanted to nail it down, and I felt like there wasn't much information on cream products at the time. It was all just foundation, concealer, powder bronzer, powder blush. And obviously now everyone's kind of getting into the more natural aspect of makeup. And I also think as well, now that, you know, trends change, makeup changes, I feel like all the old beginners makeup videos were years ago, whereas I feel like I've not seen an updated one with the new trends, with new products that people do be using. As you can see, it's added definition to my face, it's added color, it makes my face just look a lot more lively, and that's what you want. That's the purpose of bronzer, is to not only create like definition in your face, but it is also to add color. So now that we've done that, we're going to move on to concealer. So I have 3 different concealers to show you, again just as different options, just so you know that there are different types of concealers out there. The first one being my favorite. So this is the Too Faced Multi-Use Sculpting Concealer. This for me is my dream concealer. So if you are a dry skin gal, even oily skin, I've seen people with oily skin use it, this is a dream. It is super hydrating, but it's full coverage, and that is what I've been looking for ages, because you have something like this, which is Tarte Shape Tape. We all know it, we all love it. However, it is very drying for someone like me who has dry skin, but it is very full coverage. So if you have oily skin, you're going to love Tarte Shape Tape. And then you've also got something like this, which is the Huda Beauty Faux Filter Concealer, which is kind of like a more medium coverage, but it is more matte. We're gonna go in with the Too Faced Born This Way concealer today, and where I like to put it is underneath my eyes, just like so, my chin, just for a bit more coverage, a tiny bit on the center of my forehead just to balance it out, and then around my nose. Again, you can use a brush, you can use a beauty blender. I'll try a brush again today. I haven't used a brush in quite a long time. A brush is going to add more coverage, whereas a beauty blender is going to kind of shear it out for you. Now this is going to look really harsh for the minute, but bear with me once I get the beauty blender involved. Keeping it exactly where it is, and I'm just pressing it into the skin. Again, press, don't rub. This is going to be a lot of makeup for some people. For other people it's not going to be a lot, but just remember, you can change the coverage of the products and keep the techniques the same. The techniques are going to give you the same effect, but you can change the coverage of the products, you can change the finish of the products. It's completely up to you. I know I look very crazy right now, but I promise it'll all come together. We're just starting to create definition to the face, which is why it looks so stark, but that is what the beauty blender is for. So as you can see, it's really bright here, really dark here. So we're gonna take our beauty blender and we're gonna go over there. And what that's gonna do is, as you can see, it's gonna start to merge in the bronzer and the concealer together, so it creates kind of like a fade into one. So now that I'm looking a little bit dead, we're gonna move on to blusher. So cream blusher, you've got 3 different types. You have got a liquid blusher with kind of like a doe foot applicator. Then you've got something like this, which is a Rare Beauty one, which is also a liquid, but it's a bit thicker than the Charlotte Tilbury one, and it's a doe foot applicator. These are very pigmented if you are going to purchase one of these. And then you've got something like this, which is the Nude Sticks Cream Bronzer. Blusher. These are all really good. My favorite would have to be the Nude Sticks one, but because I'm pale, I want to go for something a little bit lighter, so I'm gonna go with my Charlotte Tilbury. This is the Beauty Light Wand Glowgasm in the shade Pinkgasm, and I'm just going to place this on the tops of my cheeks and a little bit on my nose. The nose kind of just ties it all in together. So I'm gonna take my Mitchell brush for this. Again, you can use the beauty blender, but I sometimes find with this blusher, I'm really pale, so you would think that a pink blusher would show up on me, but sometimes with a beauty blender it kind of actually takes away the pigment. Now you can keep it up here if you like. I like to bring it right across, like I said, to just merge it all in together, because sometimes it looks a little bit more natural when you have it all merged in together, whereas if you keep it up here, again, you're keeping it in sections, and it doesn't look as natural as you might want it to be. Now that I look like Veruca from Charlie and Chocolate Factory, again, take your beauty blender and just really go in and start blending it. Now you can already see the massive difference between this side and this side with just using a beauty blender. So at first it looks scary, but trust me, if you have a beauty blenders fix everything. Everything blends in, everything looks seamless, it looks really natural. It just looks so good. Okay, so then for powder, you've got 2 types of powder. You've got loose powder, which is loose powder. If you've never seen it before, this is what it looks like. Looks like that, literally just loose powder. And then you've got something that is a pressed powder. Now a pressed powder is going to be a lot more finely milled. It's not going to set your makeup as heavily as a loose powder. However, if you are more into a kind of lighter finish, again, if you've dry skin like myself, you might want something like the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish, or the Rimmel Stay Matte is great if you have oily skin. My favorite loose powder is the Laura Mercier translucent powder. However, with me being pale, it can actually come up a bit yellow. So today I'm going to use my Too Faced powder. This is the Too Faced Born This Way Ethereal Setting Powder. You've probably seen going around on TikTok, on Instagram, the viral powder puffs. This is the Trigwell Cosmetics powder puff. I like these. I don't love them. I like them. I prefer them with pressed powder. With loose powder, I just find that, I don't know, I just find it doesn't set in my skin as well. So I personally prefer a brush for setting powder. Again, you can also use a beauty blender. What I like to do is I like to press into the powder, tap off as much excess that'll come off, and then I will set my forehead first. The reason I set my forehead first is, as you can see, I'm talking to you, I will raise my eyebrows and they will crease. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set my forehead first. I just poked myself in the eye. Setting your face is just going to ensure that your makeup stays, and it's just going to ensure that all of the cream products that you put in place is going to stay. Now, even if you're a dry skin gal like myself, make sure you're setting your face, because over time your face, it does create oils. even if you don't think it, with, you know, your dry skin, your face still creates oils, so it's going to break through. It's going to start making your makeup look cakey, and it's going to start making your makeup look separated. So next, after I've sat my forehead, is I sat underneath my eyes. Same technique, dip it into the powder, and what I'm doing now is I'm blending out the concealer, because all that time I've been talking to you and all that time I've been adding on the other cream products and blending, it's definitely settled into my lines. So I've just blended that out first, and then I'm really just pressing this into my skin. So set my chin, my smile lines. I like to use a smaller brush first, just so it can really target those areas, because they're the areas that I know leave my face the quickest. And then to set the rest of my face, I'm just going to take a big brush, again dip into the powder, tap off the excess. Now what this is going to do, and you're going to notice, is it's going to fade the color that's on your cheeks, and that's okay because we will reinforce it. Just pressing that all over my skin. And you might think we've lost the glow, but we haven't. Remember, we've put on the Bobbi Brown Face Base dupe, we put on the Charlotte Tilbury, our foundation was glowy, the products on our skin was glowy, so you're not going to lose that glow. And even if you do, once you add setting spray, it'll all come back, so don't worry. Now that I'm all powdered and I kind of look again a bit more one-dimensional, that's when we go into adding back in our powder bronzer, powder blush, to bring back in some dimension. Okay, so I'm going to show you 3 different types of bronzers, and the reason I'm showing you 3 different types of bronzers, again, it's just for you to decide which one is going to work best for you. So you have your typical bronzer, that is a pressed powder bronzer. Looks like this. It literally looks flat, pressed. It has a lot of pigmentation. It can be slightly a bit harder to blend depending on the bronzer you get. Personally, the Charlotte Tilbury one, it blends beautifully, just as much as my favorite bronzer, which I'll get to at the end, but this one is beautiful. So if you're thinking about getting a pressed powder, really recommend this one. Then you have something like this. This is also a pressed powder, however it is a shimmery bronzer. Now as you can see, the little bit of glow to it. What this does is it just adds a bit more glow to your face. It can just make you look a bit more shimmery, a bit more tan. It's gorgeous in summer when, you know, you want to make it look like, you know, you've had that gorgeous tan from the sun, even though we're in Ireland. And yeah, that's literally all the purpose that a shimmery bronzer does. And then my absolute favorite formula of bronzer, and I think probably everyone's favorite formula of bronzer, is the MAC Mineralized Skin Finish. The reason people love this so much is because it is a baked formula. As you can see, well, maybe not, because mine has gone down quite a bit. It has like a hump, and it's basically essentially a face powder mixed with a bronzer, so it's a little bit more light. It's so easy to blend. It looks amazing on the skin, and if you've seen any of my tutorials or makeup videos before, you will know that this is my absolute favorite bronzer. And my favorite brush to put it on with is the P. Louise Cancel Collection. It is the 638 brush. It's just an angle brush. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dab into it. And this bronzer, if you were terrified of putting bronzer on your face, just to let you know, the MAC Mineralized Skin Finishes, you cannot go overboard with them. Let me just show you. Right, you can see how much I'm digging into this, yeah? See what I mean? No matter how much you dig into these, you're not going to go overboard, and if you do, you can just blend it out. It just adds a gorgeous colour back into your face, and it just makes your makeup, oh, it just makes your makeup look so much more lifted. I just find that you can't see these as much as, say, like the typical powdered bronzer, just because they are that baked formula. So I've just put them exactly in the points where I put the cream bronzer. But yeah, as you can see, it just glides on beautifully, and you saw how much I dug into that. It is so nice. Honest to God, my favorite bronzer of all time. Now if like myself, I went down a little bit too low on this side, what you can do is you can just take your powder and grab your beauty blender, dip into it, and just carve out your cheekbones. And while the longer you let that sit there, the more it's going to just remove the excess. Well, it doesn't physically remove it, but it kind of just puts a layer over the mistake that you made, and it is not noticeable at all. I'm gonna move on to blush. Okay, so again, I wanted to show you two different types of blushes. So one of the blushes that you can get, again, is a powdered blush. This is the Beauty Bay powder blush in the shade Peachy. It's gorgeous peachy blush, and like I said, anything that's more of a powdered formula, it's going to be a lot more pigmented, so just be careful with these. And these are very pigmented, but they're so easy to blend. And then you have your other option, which is the MAC Mineralized Blush in Warm Soul. So just like the mineralized skin finish powder that I showed you, it's got that dome, it's finely milled, but this one has a shimmer in it, so it gives a little bit of a glow to the skin. And again, it's a little bit more natural versus a powder. A powder can just make you look a bit more glam, but these two are my favorite and they go so nicely together and with the blush that I'm wearing today. But I think today I might as well just stick with the MAC theme and use Warm Soul. And for my blush, I like to use quite a fluffy brush just because it's very easy to go overboard with blush. So I would rather have a fluffier brush, which means less coverage onto my skin, than go in with a really dense brush, apply it, and then me not be able to blend it. And you can also then just build the coverage of your blush to as much as you want. And now that that powder has been sitting there, I'm just going to wipe it off and just swirl up. Just make sure there's no harsh lines. You could add highlighter if you wanted that, but to be honest, this is enough glow for me, and once my natural oils start coming through, it's going to be more than enough. So now it is time to move on to setting spray. So for setting sprays, you have one type of setting spray, which is just a sprayer. It sprays. One can be like a continuous mist, or another one could be like you can spray it multiple times. But these two are my favorite. Now I have a downfall of this, but we'll get to this in a minute. But at the moment, this one's my favorite. It's the e.l.f. Cosmetics Stay All Night Microfine Setting Mist. So this one is a long-lasting setting spray. A long-lasting setting spray, as it says in the tub, it's going to make your makeup last all night. This claims up to 16 hours wear. Whether that works, I don't know. But then you have something like this, which is the Laura Mercier Invisible Hydrating Setting Spray. So you can get setting sprays that are tailored to your skin type. So one that is more hydrating, one that is more oil controlling. Obviously, I have dry skin, so I would go for the hydrating one. However, a lot of people have complained about the sprayer on this. It spits. So I haven't been using this for a while. I do really like it. So once I finish this, I'm going to transfer this into this and then use this as this. So for today, we're going to go in with the e.l.f. one. So just spray it all over your face. I know it might feel weird to add something wet on top of all your products, but these are made to melt your makeup together. These are made to make your makeup last and to not interfere with how your makeup is going on. Now I do recommend not to talk while doing your setting spray, because when you talk you create lines on your face, and therefore the setting spray is going to settle into those lines and then keep those lines all day. But it's okay, I'm not going anywhere. So yeah, this is our base. So guys, that is the end of today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really hope it helped some of you, and let me know if there are any more videos like this that you'd like me to do. I know makeup can sometimes be a little bit intimidating, especially with new trends coming out, but honest to God, practice, and you will get it to where you want your makeup to be. Makeup is obviously not a one size fits all. There's different techniques, there's different products. Something that might work for me might not work for you, and vice versa. So just take this with a pinch of salt, but just know that these are kind of like the basic techniques that are go around at the moment, and these are kind of like the basic products that people are using at the moment. If you wanted to get into these kind of like trends, or if you wanted to just understand a little bit more about the makeup that people are doing nowadays, I hope this video helped. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you did, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, make sure you subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.